What if the skills your great-grandmother used every single week were slowly made illegal, not because they were dangerous, but because they were free? 12 of them specifically. The knowledge didn't vanish because it stopped working. It went quiet because somebody built a profit center in the space it used to occupy. I've read the regulatory documents. I've traced the legislation. This video covers all 12 skills, names the mechanisms that push them out, and tells you which ones you can still do legally on your own property starting this week. Number 1. Growing and preserving your own food. In 1935, the average American family grew about 40% of its own food. By 1975, that number had collapsed below 4%, and the gap wasn't filled by better nutrition. Grocery chains filled it, and they needed you showing up every week with cash. Here's what the record shows. During World War II, the Victory Garden campaign proved that urban families on small lots could grow serious food. Then the war ended, and within a decade, municipal zoning codes started classifying food gardens as nuisances, pushing them behind houses, out of sight. HOA covenants, many written with direct input from real estate developers, banned them outright in new subdivisions. Number 2. Saving seeds from each harvest. Your grandfather walked his garden in late summer with a paper bag and a pencil, picking out the best tomato, the fullest ear of corn, the squash that held longest on the vine, and he set that seed aside for next year. That single act cut every seed company that would ever exist completely out of his food supply. Then in 1980, the Supreme Court ruled in Diamond versus Chakrabarty that living organisms could be patented, and the commercial seed industry moved fast. Companies engineered hybrid varieties that don't breed true, so the seed you save from them won't reliably produce the same crop next season. Saving it becomes pointless. Number 3. Keeping chickens, goats, or livestock for food. In 1945, 6 hens on a 50-foot lot covered most of a family's egg needs, and the birds ate kitchen scraps, so the feed bill was nearly nothing. Then municipal health codes started banning backyard poultry through the 1950s and 1960s, right when the commercial egg industry was scaling up confinement operations across the Midwest and Southeast. The salmonella argument got used to push those bans through, but the documented outbreaks of that era traced back to commercial facilities, not family flocks. The regulation landed on the family anyway. Number 4. Home canning and food storage. Your grandmother didn't store food because she was cautious. She stored it because a family that couldn't eat through a bad winter didn't make it to spring. A full cellar wasn't a hobby project. It was the whole plan. The FDA's Good Manufacturing Practice rules, issued under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act amendments of the 1960s and 1970s, were written for commercial processors running 10,000 jars a day. The language was broad enough that state health departments started applying those same factory standards to anyone who wanted to sell or share what they canned at home. That's why the cottage food law movement exists. By 2010, it was illegal in most states to sell a jar of jam you made in your own kitchen. Number 5. Repairing clothes instead of replacing them. In 1940, a woman who couldn't mend a shirt wasn't considered thrifty. She was considered unprepared. By 1980, a woman who could was considered behind the times, and that flip didn't happen because sewing stopped working. It happened because the ready-to-wear industry priced new clothing below the cost of repair and then spent decades advertising the gap as liberation. Nobody banned mending. What happened instead was quieter. Home economics funding dried up through the 1970s and 1980s. The American Home Economics Association rebranded in 1994 and shifted toward consumer behavior instead of production skills. And 80 years of formal sewing instruction got reclassified as gender stereotyping and quietly dropped from curricula. Number 6. Building and maintaining basic structures yourself. Before 1950, every barn, smokehouse, and outbuilding on a working farm got built by the family that needed it, with neighbors showing up because they'd need the same help next season. Your great-grandfather didn't hire a framing crew. He knew how loads transfer through a wall, how green timber moves as it dries, how deep a footer needs to go before frost heaves it. Building permit systems expanded fast after World War II, pushed along by the suburbanization the GI Bill triggered. By the 1970s, doing your own structural, electrical, or plumbing work without a permit meant fines, forced demolition, and insurance problems. The National Association of Home Builders lobbied through the 1970s and 1980s against owner-builder exemptions, and in many states those exemptions got quietly narrowed or cut entirely. Number 7. Woodcutting and firewood management for heating. Your grandfather didn't have a gas bill. He had a wood pile, and if it ran short in January, that was a planning failure. not a utility outage. A family that knew how to cut, split, season, and manage firewood controlled their own heat at the cost of their own labor. Nothing more. The EPA's wood heater rules, first issued in 1988 under the Clean Air Act, set particulate emission standards that classified most stoves built before 2010 as non-compliant. The 2015 and 2020 updates tightened those limits further. In parts of California, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, burn bans now prohibit wood heat even in certified stoves on high pollution days with fines attached. Number 8. Hunting, fishing, and trapping for supplemental food. Your grandfather didn't buy protein every week. He read the woods. He knew which creek bend held fish in October, which field edge deer crossed at first light, and where to set a trap line when November turned cold. The equipment was simple, mostly repairable, and the resource itself cost nothing but the skill to take it. By the 2020s, a full hunting and fishing license package in many states runs $100 to $300 per year, and non-resident licenses in good public land states can hit $500 or more. For a family treating this as a food source rather than a hobby, that's a real number. Number 9. Identifying edible and medicinal wild plants. Before the first pharmacy opened in your town, there was a woman your family went to with a fever or a bad wound, and she kept a garden that doubled as a medicine chest. That knowledge wasn't superstition. A lot of it got confirmed later by pharmacological research, after the pharmaceutical industry had already replaced the plants with patented synthetic versions. The 1994 Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act is where the mechanism gets clear. It let companies sell herbal supplements but blocked any specific health claims without clinical trial proof. Clinical trials cost tens of millions of dollars, and you can't patent a plant that grows in a ditch, so nobody runs those trials. Number 10. Repairing tools and household equipment. Your grandfather's tractor had an engine you could see all the way around, reach into with both hands, and fix with tools hanging on the wall of his shop. When something broke at harvest, he fixed it himself that morning. The engine in your combine has a software layer that only an authorized dealer's diagnostic system can read, and that's not an accident. John Deere's end-user license agreement, which farmers didn't discover until their equipment stopped working, explicitly prohibited owners from repairing the software and machines they'd bought outright. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998 made circumventing those software locks illegal, so a farmer with a $400,000 combine sitting dead in a field during harvest had one legal option: wait for the dealer. Number 11. Bartering goods and services within the community. In 1930, nobody in your grandfather's community needed a bank to eat. A man who could frame a wall traded that work for a cord of wood. A woman with a laying flock traded eggs for a neighbor's garden surplus. No dollars changed hands, no receipts got written, and nobody asked permission. Then, Revenue Ruling 7924 put the IRS on record. Barter income is taxable, and the fair market value of whatever you receive counts as reportable income. A family trading labor for food technically owes tax on that exchange, which means the compliance burden alone functions as a legal risk designed to discourage exactly the kind of neighbor-to-neighbor trade that kept communities fed when cash ran short. Number 12. Drawing water from wells and managing independent water supplies. Your grandfather didn't pay a water bill. He owned a well, which meant he owned the water underneath his property, and a pump and the knowledge to maintain it were the only things standing between his family and a dry season. The Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 gave the EPA authority over public water systems, which was a real public health need. But the financial structure it created gave municipalities a strong reason to expand their service areas, because water revenue funds the pipes, the staff, and the agency itself. 12 skills. Every one of them was ordinary in your great-grandparents' time. Everyone got made difficult, expensive, or legally risky through zoning codes, health rules, patent law, licensing fees, and tax rules. Most of them written between 1950 and 1990, most of them with industry lobbying behind them, and all of them sitting in public records you can read yourself. The pattern across all 12 is the same. A basic need moved out of the household and into a supply chain. Your grandfather didn't call anyone for a leaking pump. The knowledge was still in the house.